They say the Garden of Eden once bloomed between these two rivers. Tigris, Euphrates, twin arteries of ancient life, waters that gave birth to writing, agriculture, law, and cities, the first cradle of civilization. But today, that cradle is cracking. Walk along the Euphrates in Iraq, and you'll find patches of dry sand where there used to be fertile floodplains. Stand by the Tigris in Mosul, and the water barely reaches your ankles. Once, these rivers shaped empires. Now, they are ghosts of their former selves, diverted, dammed, drained. The birthplace of humanity is running dry. But rivers don't forget. They remember. They remember the footsteps of Sumerians planting barley. They remember the hymns sung to the goddess Inanna. They remember Hammurabi's code carved in stone and the ziggurats reaching for the sky. These waters once carried boats heavy with grain, clay tablets, and dreams. The Tigris and Euphrates weren't just rivers. They were life itself. Without them, Babylon would never have risen. Ur would have never whispered its name into history. Baghdad would never have shimmered like a jewel in the desert. But somewhere along the way, we began to believe we could control them. In the 20th century, upstream nations, Turkey, Iran, Syria, began building massive dam systems to capture the headwaters. The Ataturk Dam, Elisu, Mosul, Tabqa. Each project promised development, electricity, irrigation. Each promised a better future for someone. But downstream, the price was clear. Iraq now receives less than 30% of the water it once did from these rivers. Entire stretches have become seasonal. The Mesopotamian marshes, once the largest wetlands in the Middle East, have dried and cracked, forcing marsh Arabs to abandon their way of life. Villages are empty. Boats lie stranded on cracked soil. Salt invades the farmlands, and dust storms rise where rivers once ran. But this is not just ecological loss. It is historical amnesia. Because when a river dries, memory fades, not just from maps, but from music, from tongues, from the rituals passed down like water itself. In the Quran, the Euphrates is one of the rivers of paradise. In Genesis, Eden lies between 4 rivers, including these 2. To lose them is to lose not only water, but metaphor. Not just life, but meaning. And yet, this is not a natural drought. This is a manufactured famine of flow. Climate change plays its role. Yes, hotter summers, weaker rains. But this is not just about nature changing her course. It is about power. About who owns the faucet, who builds the dams, who opens the gates. And while governments argue, children in Basra grow up without clean drinking water. In 2018, over 100,000 people were hospitalized due to polluted water in southern Iraq. Fishermen throw nets into rivers and catch nothing but plastic. And still, the taps run dry. It didn't have to be this way. These rivers could have connected us. Instead, they divide. Imagine this. A river that starts in Turkey, flows through Syria, then Iraq. But each nation builds its own walls. Each hoards. Each fears. Each forgets that rivers are meant to move freely, openly, generously. The politics of water are the new front lines of conflict. The wars of tomorrow may not be over oil, but over access to rivers. And Mesopotamia is already a preview. But in all this ruin, there is still a whisper of redemption. Some of the marshlands have been restored by force of will, not of policy. Local communities are planting reeds again. Ecologists are working with what's left of the ancient flow to bring birds and fish back. Scholars dig through ruins while farmers dig canals. Some even say the Euphrates is healing, slowly, defiantly. But healing is not guaranteed. It is not passive. It is a choice. And we must ask, What do we choose? Do we choose profit over balance? Control over cooperation? Pipelines over pulse? Because what we do to rivers, we do to ourselves. The Tigris and Euphrates once taught us how to live. They gave us the calendar, the city, the story. And now, they teach us what happens when we forget. When we build nations without nature. When we extract without end. When we believe we are separate from the water that made us. But maybe it's not too late. Maybe the rivers are waiting, not for more dams, but for more listening, not for conquest, but for care. If we remember that these rivers once fed Eden, maybe we'll realize we are not trying to save paradise. We are standing in its ruins, trying to keep what little remains alive. And maybe, just maybe, if we let the rivers flow again, we'll learn how to feed Eden once more. If this story stirred something in you, subscribe to Myths and Mysticism of Rivers. Because rivers are not just geography, they are legacy, and they are watching what we do next.